The Freedom Trail in Boston, Massachusetts is a 2.5-mile path marked by red brick that showcases 16 sites instrumental to the American Revolution and beyond. Not only will we show you these historical buildings, churches, and graveyards, we'll visit Lexington and Concord, the location of the shot heard round the world, where the fight for independence began. This is Magellan.
And this is Greyhound.
Where we make videos about epic road trips, kayaking, hiking, and other outdoor adventures. You'll start at the Visitor Center in Boston Common, where you can take guided or self-guided tours. This is the second time doing this by ourselves. Maybe we'll do a tour one day. The trail itself can take as little as a couple of hours or all day depending on how long you visit each site. Established in 1634, Boston Common is America's oldest park and is the first stop along the Freedom Trail. When the Battle of Lexington and Concord began in 1775, the British military set off from here, where they had set up camp. The second stop is the Massachusetts State House, the state capitol, with its golden dome atop Beacon Hill. American Revolution war heroes such as Paul Revere and Governor Samuel Adams laid its cornerstone in 1798. You can go inside, and it is a beautiful structure filled with history. The Hall of Flags is the centerpiece with murals on the walls depicting the battles at Concord, the Mayflower, and the like. Also, this stained glass mural of the 13 original states is not below the Gold Dome. That's above the Senate chamber. Our next stop is the Park Street Church, the tallest building in the U.S. from 1810 to 1828. It was among the first places where people spoke out against slavery, among other issues. We were lucky enough to enjoy a large group of children singing the Star-Spangled Banner on the steps.
That was awesome!
This is a famous burial ground in Boston. Herein lies the 5 victims of the Boston Massacre, 3 signatories of the Declaration of Independence, John Hancock, Samuel Adams, and Robert Treat Paine, and of course, Paul Revere. There are informational signs to show you where everyone is buried. Also, that obelisk located in the center is not for Benjamin Franklin, but his parents. Franklin is actually buried in Philadelphia. Built in 1686 and Boston's first Anglican church, George Washington, Oliver Wendell Holmes, Louisa May Alcott, Paul Revere, John Hancock, and Benjamin Franklin were all known to have attended service here at one point. It's $5 to enter, just so you know. The neighboring burial grounds at King's Chapel are among the oldest of the burying grounds in Boston. Among those buried here are John Winthrop, the first governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, Mary Chilton, the first woman to step off the pilgrim ship the Mayflower, and William Dawes, who was among several writers besides Paul Revere who alerted the colonists the night of April 18, 1775. The site where Franklin's statue stands is the former location of America's first public school, the Boston Latin School, opened on April 23, 1635. Franklin, Samuel Adams, and William Hooper, all signatories of the Declaration of Independence, attended this school. Now Chipotle, this building was the home of the old Corner Bookstore, built in 1718 and Boston's oldest commercial building. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Nathaniel Hawthorne, Charles Dickens, and Oliver Wendell Holmes would meet here. It was also the home of publisher Ticknor and Fields, and carried books such as Thoreau's Walden, Hawthorne's Scarlet Letter, and Longfellow's Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. Our next stop is the Old South Meeting House, which costs $15 for entry into both it and the next stop, the Old State House. Built in 1729 and the largest building in Boston at the time, this Congregational church was a center for massive public protests, including being the location where the Boston Tea Party was organized. It contains historical exhibits showing the protests and the lead-up to the American Revolution. Built in 1713, the Old State House is the oldest surviving public building in Boston. It now functions as a history museum on the events before, during, and after the American Revolution. It was at this balcony that the Declaration of Independence was read on July 18, 1776. Just below the balcony is the site of the Boston Massacre, where on March 5, 1870, 5 people, Crispus Attucks, Samuel Gray, James Caldwell, Samuel Maverick, and Patrick Carr, were killed by British soldiers. This further fueled the flames that eventually became the fire of the American Revolution. Fanueil Hall, known as the Cradle of Liberty, was a meeting hall and marketplace built in 1742 in downtown Boston. The Sons of Liberty proclaimed their dissent here against the British, and Samuel Adams made several speeches as well. These days, it houses a National Park Service visitor center and a collection of shops. Outside, there is a statue of Samuel Adams, and located just next door is Sam Adams Brewery. This is the home of Paul Revere, who lived here from 1770 to 1800. It's $6 for entry into the home and gives a glimpse of one of the Revolution's most famous heroes. FYI, no photo or video is allowed inside. It is permitted for the exterior of the house, the courtyard, and the visitor center. This home, built in 1680, is the oldest remaining structure in downtown Boston. This is one of the bells Revere cast, being that he was a silversmith. Our next stop is the Old North Church, but in order to get to it, you'll walk through the Paul Revere Mall and see the famous statue of Paul Revere himself. This statue commemorates his midnight ride where he alerted everyone of the British invasion before the Battle of Lexington and Concord. You may know the phrase, 1 if by land, 2 if by sea, and it was at the Old North Church that 2 lanterns were held as a signal that the British were heading to Lexington and Concord across the Charles River. Outside the entrance of the church is the Old North Memorial Garden with an Iraq-Afghanistan memorial filled with nameless dog tags. If you wait long enough, the wind will cause the dog tags to chime. As for the inside of the church, I'm sorry. I got very upset at the dog tag memorial and pretty much forgot to go inside. This is a historic Northside cemetery built in 1659, the largest of the colonial burial grounds. The 2 men believed to have held the lanterns in the Old North Church, Sexton Robert Newman and Merchant John Pulling Jr., are buried here. It's at this point that we need to warn you that it's a mile walk from here to the USS Constitution. You'll cross the North Washington Street Bridge into Charlestown. The USS Constitution, also known as Old Ironsides, is the oldest naval vessel still afloat in the United States, with 3 masts and a wooden hull. Built in Boston in 1797 to establish America's young Navy, Old Ironsides earned her name in the War of 1812 because cannons couldn't penetrate her strong oak hull. During the war, despite being in dry dock for 6 months and blockaded for 6 more, she defeated 4 major British frigates, 2 in 1 day. It was really cool to head down the different levels of this ship as well. The last stop of the Freedom Trail is the Bunker Hill Monument, erected at the site of the Battle of Bunker Hill on June 17, 1775, which was the first major battle of the Revolutionary War. While the British won that battle, it showed that the Americans could fight. "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes" is a famous phrase that came from this battle. Don't just take photos of the monument, though. You can go up it. All 294 steps. It is definitely not easy to get up there. The views at the top are pretty good, but could be better if the windows weren't so filthy. And while I'm afraid of heights, this didn't bother me looking down for some reason. Lastly, we would be remiss not to show you the battlefield of Lexington and Concord, a turning point in the fight for independence, which is about 20 miles away from Boston. It's only a short walk to the North Bridge from the Visitor Center, where you'll see a giant statue of the Minuteman. On April 19th, 1775, it was here that the American Revolutionary War began and led to the eventual creation of the United States. The shot heard round the world. Let us know if you've done the Freedom Trail. Otherwise, we'll see you on the trails or in the water.